Hey guys, what's up? I'm coming today with some soul level 80-ish invasions. I've got a couple of characters. I think this guy's at soul level 80 and my others at like soul level 82. I've been wanting to talk about something for a while, which is I wanted to give a shout out to Raven of Ash. Raven of Ash is a somewhat frequent commenter on like Saint Riot's videos and Pincognitos, and he was the one that clued me into the loss of stability you get when you infuse a shield. I knew that there was a loss of stability, but I thought it was pretty negligible. And he was the one that showed me that it took a like fully upgraded Llewellyn from stability 57 at like +9 down to at 57 stability at +9 down to about 42 stability, which is really pretty terrifying. And that's important because I wanted to start doing some setup parries, but those are risky, as you're going to see here in just a moment, using shields at all, because here I go for the setup parry, and just as I do, the host comes wheeling in from outside my vision and breaks my guard. And fortunately, neither of them were ready for it, or they would have probably riposted and killed me right there. Overall, the setup parries have been so amazing. I don't know how I got this far into my sort of Souls career without using them, but I noticed guys like Pincognito, Saint Riot, Nif, a lot of the YouTubers that I really respect were using these, and I had never added them to my repertoire, but I've started making a concerted effort to use them. They are, in my view, the most effective parry. There's a lot of players out there who they know don't do rolling attacks, don't swing more than twice in a row. They know all the basic steps to avoid getting parried, but even those players will, especially like if they've got a great sword, they'll overload their R1 buffer, and especially if you don't bring the shield up to block until after that first R1 starts to come out, they'll have committed to the second R1 and it's too late. And I know this because if I don't parry them on that second R1, many times the next time they go to swing, they'll only swing once. Even if I don't attempt to parry, they realize the mistake they've made and they sort of correct their behavior. But setup parry is a huge, huge, huge benefit. It's made me much, much more effective. And frankly, I don't even really bother with other parry types that often anymore, except maybe parrying out a stun when both players come out of stun at the same time. Or if a player is on a good connection, I'll face tank some parries. And here in this particular invasion, I was cutting this host some slack because he was just getting annihilated when I came in. And he popped a seed, so I just went ahead and killed the Drakeblood Knight for him. I've been starting to use, and you can see there, I could have gone for the parry. I was checking to see if he would follow up the rolling attack, and he did, so I knew I could get him with the setup parry here. I've been using the Karthus Greatsword. I've really been having fun with this weapon. It's kind of a mixed bag, especially against people who know what they're doing. If they're using a shield, you got to be really, really careful because it's easy for them to kind of get in between your swings, and of course you have to be careful that you don't get set up parried. So here I find the host. He's already off beyond me. He probably saw he was getting invaded and kind of rushed through this area. So I somewhat cautiously come out here, and at this point I realize he's almost certainly up above me. Sometimes when I watch these videos I can hear the audio and it's very clear what's happening, but when I'm playing I usually don't have the audio up loudly enough to hear these things. So my plan at this point is to try to bait him into a plunging attack, and then I can roll early and come out and backstab him. So it was a great plan, except for the fact that I wasn't thinking about the fact that he would plunge attack before I could ever get far enough out of there to see him. And after he damaged me, he came in to finish me off, probably assuming I would panic heal. So that's exactly what I didn't do. I started swinging. And I know this is a point that Saint Riot makes frequently, that if you want to make space for a heal, the way to do it is to attack, force the other guy to back off and heal. This player seems to have an idea what he was doing. I don't know my shields very well. I don't know if that shield can actually parry or not. But when I saw the bombs come out, I was afraid it was a Barker bomb bait, so I didn't want to just rush in and try to punish the host. I've got almost all of my damage stats loaded into Dex, so I don't lose a lot of damage when I one-hand my weapon. And this is always a fun sight when you spawn in right on top of the host. So I'm kind of in a bad spot right here. There's really nowhere for me to go. The PvE behind me is probably all dead. Now it's a good choke point, but if they start pressuring me, I really have no way to get away. So I'm already thinking about my first opportunity to sort of get by these guys. And when the Phantom there casts, I decide that's my chance to make a break for it. So I'm not going to use the PvE here and kind of hide among them, but I am going to kind of keep them at my back, knowing that I can make a retreat if I need to, and that'll slow them down. So these situations can be a little difficult, where you've got two players, neither of whom seem to really know what they're doing PvP-wise, and if it were either one, I would probably be able to get rid of them pretty quickly. But in a situation where you've got two players swinging, it makes it really, really dangerous. And I see that this Phantom likes to swing with Abandon, and he doesn't mind swinging more than twice, even though I've got my parry shield out. So I sort of file that information away for later. Another thing I've realized about setup parries is they're so much safer than face tanking. When I face tank parries, unless the connection's really, really good, I end up whiffing those a lot. And if you whiff one of those, then it's easy to eat 4 or 5 R1s. And especially like with a dark sword, if they've got it buffed, I mean, that's enough to take off like 80% of your health right there. So those can be really dangerous. If you're playing against a single player, it's not such a big deal. You can back off and heal. But otherwise, I really kind of try to stay away from those parries. I still do them on an occasion, but I don't do them with anywhere near the frequency I used to. So I'm really just trying to figure out a way to keep one of these guys at bay and attack the other. And I see the host likes to swing multiple times, so I'm thinking about setup parrying him. But as you saw in the previous videos, I've got to be really careful that the other one doesn't come in and attack at the same time and break my guard. So I'm just constantly trying to harass these guys. If I've been thinking, I might have let them hit me with the Undead Hunter Charm. And there I decide to go ahead after face tanking the first two and go for the riposte. The connection seems solid enough. So now that's just down to the host. I feel pretty good about my odds here. And I panic rolled there. It's embarrassing. And there I pick up another setup parry. Oh, I am so in love with these. I can't believe for so long I did not have those as part of my repertoire. So obviously we're back to the Grand Archives. If you've been paying attention to Saint Riot's videos lately, and if you're on my channel, chances are good that you've known him long before you've known of me. And in the off chance that you don't watch his videos, you really need to do yourself a favor. Stop watching this. Go check him out. He's amazing. Not only is he a great content creator, an educator of Souls content, but he's really taken his game up a notch in these past few weeks, making some of the funnest videos I have ever seen, Souls or otherwise. Just absolutely had me in hysterics. Just it's really, really unbelievable. His subscriber count has been skyrocketing lately, and it's long overdue. It's really gratifying to see that. He talks a lot about the verticality of this level. I'm not as good an overall invader as he is to know how to take advantage of those things all the time, so I'm typically more likely just going to mix it up with these guys. So this set of the staircase here is a really great choke point, because you've got some awesome PvE directly behind you. So if you need to beat a retreat, you've got a number of casters. You've got those arm things that curse people. They throw wax at enemies, so if their attention is diverted, they're paying attention to you, they can easily get waxed, and then they can't move efficiently. If they start trying to panic and roll, it's pretty comical, and they're just totally easy pickings. So I decided I'll kind of play along with this guy for a few minutes. He wants to have a nap evidently, so I thought I'd catch some sleep alongside him. And here comes the rest of the gang. And, you know, if I were strictly interested in maximizing my likelihood of victory, I would have probably attacked that guy and that phantom with the great club and just killed him outright. But there's lots of different ways to have fun with invasions, and it's not always just about killing people. That's an important part, just not always the most important part. I'm trying to get the timing of the roll catches on this weapon. It's predictive though, like you don't really have time to wait for them to roll and start swinging like you do with a Karthus or a straight sword. You have to predict the roll and start swinging to catch them in their roll. It's funny, it's almost like a parry, like when somebody attacks out of stun, the same timing that you would use on the parry, that's when you have to swing that weapon. The host goes for the hail parry and gets punished appropriately for it. This was actually an interesting invasion. So at the time that this was taking place, Saint Riot was streaming and invading in the Grand Archives. And so I was invading, either trying to invade him directly or invade in alongside him. And I picked up quite a number of invasions during that time. Unfortunately, because the popularity of his stream has increased, it's become really difficult to actually get into his world because there's so many other invaders vying for attention. But I'm just kind of screwing around and throwing stones around this guy. He was AFK and comes back. So we have a little one-on-one, and I realized right away, it's hard to put my finger on what it is exactly. I don't know if it's the mix-up or it's the way that they move, but it's pretty clear that this guy is a good player. And you can see he's hit me 2 or 3 times, and I have not been able to answer and respond a single time. So we ended up having a really good fight. It was really, really close. And there, I'm glad I was blocking. I thought I had that spaced, but I obviously did not. I went to message him afterwards and realized in my history I had actually messaged him previously. Let's be a little cheeky there, but I had messaged him previously, and we must have invaded one another sometime in the past and had an equally good fight, and that's why we had talked about it before. And then a few minutes later, he actually asked me if I was trying to invade Saint Riot too. I didn't realize that this guy was in the stream as well, but explained why he was so good. I really think this guy would have probably been better off if he had stuck with the spear the whole time. And we trade, and I just barely eke out enough to survive the trade. Very good player, though. That was a really fun match. Really, those little like mini duels are often a really nice distraction from invading. Invasions are fun in a completely different way than duels are. The quality of opponent is typically lower in invasions, but you're dealing with more of them. They're fighting to stay alive in a way that somebody in a duel isn't. They're just trying to fight you. And that was really something I just didn't appreciate for a really long time. In fact, I had kind of given up on invasions probably 7-8 months ago, and I was strictly a duelist. It made me a much better player, but I really didn't learn a lot about invasions per se. And then I somehow came across St. Riot's Learn to Invade series, and it really showed me just like how much of this I was missing out on, and it really rekindled my love for invasions. I knew the guy was going to attack me, and I just don't react in time. He just gets caught in straight sword, R1, roll, catch, hell. That's always really satisfying. But a good player would never make that mistake. Really found that this Karthus works better in groups because of the hyper armor. I know from experience from playing against this weapon, it can be really difficult to fight well against it, especially if you've got a straight sword. Spacing out the curved great sword with a straight sword is a real challenge. Now with two players, they might be a little bit more fortunate. Now I noticed the Phantom there was a password summon Phantom. And anytime you have password summon Phantoms, the risk of resummon is much higher than it otherwise would be, for the simple reason, two reasons really. One, obviously, they can coordinate pretty effectively. They're almost always on a mic together. But they're friends, they're working together, they probably know each other really well, and so they can not only just resummon them, but they can resummon them effectively anywhere in the level. So right about now, I imagine his buddy is booking it over here to this location in his world so he can put his sign down. And that's the reason the host keeps kind of traversing the same area over and over. I see him run out here. He's not actually planning on going anywhere out there. His goal is just to kind of keep me busy long enough for this other guy to get his summon sign back down. But fortunately, I had something else to say about that. So as soon as I show up, I see Blade of the Dark Moon's return home, and I saw the last gasp of another invader. So I'm expecting a gank. But I don't find one. I find what appears to be a solo host. But I see more and more hosts now. They'll put on Way of Blue and they'll hit the Dried Fingers, and then they'll just kind of run through the level and gank invaders with the blues, because blues get summoned so much more reliably now and in much greater numbers. So a single host can easily be joined by two blues, and I'm kind of waiting for him to try a plunging attack here. Thinking about this now, I probably should have been more aggressive here, knowing that he's got Way of Blue on, knowing there's probably going to be a Dark Moon that's going to show up before too long. It's always funny when somebody tries to cheese me with a bow. I just pull out my Avalon, and that stops that behavior pretty quickly. And as predicted, here comes the first Dark Moon. And so what I mentioned before, the difficulty of trying to space a curved greatsword with a straight sword, it can definitely be done, especially against players that aren't very good and kind of stand in one place and swing multiple times, because it really allows you to space them out really well and kind of know exactly where they're going to be swinging and be able to get really close so you can stand just outside of where they're swinging and be able to punish them with a R1 or maybe a poke with an R2. But against a player that's any good, it becomes really difficult. So I am really giving this guy the business, and then I go for the setup parry. Because I hadn't shown him that at all, he was almost guaranteed to have piled up too many R1s. I'm not sure where the Dark Moon is at this point, so I'm just trying to damage this host as much as I can while he's gone. And I hear the Dark Moon messing with the PvE, so I don't have to watch my back too badly here. Again with the setup parry again, and this time I actually think to switch over to my Chaos Dagger. And the Dark Moon doesn't seem too interested in actually getting involved in this fight. So I'm like, sweet. I decide to go pursuing the host down into this dead-end room. And then suddenly I realize actually the Dark Moon Blade is interested in participating. And now I got a pretty big problem. I got two players kind of pinning me back here. I was really, really lucky to find a way to get between them and roll out. With two players in there like that, it would have been so easy for me to have been permanently trapped in there and just got R1 spammed to death. This room's interesting because you cannot lock on to players unless you are right on top of them. So if you're comfortable playing unlocked, it can be a really good idea to try to lead a host and his phantoms into this room, especially if one of them is a caster. This is where you want to be, but it definitely will make it harder on you too. But as an invader, chances are good you're going to be more comfortable playing unlocked than the host is going to be. And here come the reinforcements. So at this point now I'm super excited because I know the odds of us winning are almost guaranteed now that we can split up the blue and the host. And it gets disconnected. Funny enough, I couldn't resist the urge to send the host a message joking about his mom pulling the plug, which he insists did not happen, so I'll take that for what it's worth. I don't know, I was just feeling a little silly. I figured I'd dress this guy up like a pope. I was doing some co-op with a player by the name of Nobody, and he had an outfit like this, and I switched into it. And so I decided to put it back on and do some invasions just because it looks so ridiculous. You know, one thing I'd be interested in hearing people's feedback about, one thing I don't have a very good sense about is how big a difference armor makes in this game at a given level of vitality. So in other words, if you think about kind of the most amount of armor this guy could wear with all the weapons I'm wielding, if I were to put on Havel's Ring +3 and increase my armor proportionately so I was still below that 70% equip weight, would that make an appreciable difference in my defense? Like, is that something that's worth doing, or increasing my vitality and giving up on my damage stats so that I can wear stronger armor? I really don't know, and I've never had a good chance to kind of test it out with one of my friends, which is really what I should do. My suspicion is that it probably doesn't matter, but I don't really know for sure. So if anyone happens to know and has some thoughts, I would really be interested in hearing them. And there I go for the setup parry and it fails me. And I know with, especially like with the straight swords, you've got to really be on top of your timing. Like the second R1 hits your shield, you've got to try to make sure you let go of the L1 button and press L2. And the timing window is really tight. And if the connection's laggy, it won't work, but it also won't work even on a good connection if your timing isn't really good. So I'm not sure if that was just poor timing on my part or if it was a poor connection. So these guys are pursuing me pretty aggressively, and I don't really have an answer for them until I switch to the Hollow Slayer. This, to me, just really illustrates the importance of having quick access to multiple tools on your character. I mean, this is a hard lesson I've learned time and time again, and here I learned another hard lesson, which is don't underestimate players. I didn't think there was any way in hell that player was going to turn around and attack me, and he got me with a turn and burn, and he did quite a bit of damage to me. Now, unfortunately for him, he's kind of predictably swinging into my hyper armor, which lets me trade and punish him. And with a weapon like the Hollow Slayer, it can out-damage your health increases. In other words, if you Estus in my face, I'm going to do more damage with each R1 combo than your Estus is going to do for you. I'm not totally sure about that on the Hollow Slayer. I know on the Karthus Great Curve Sword, that is definitely true. And I see him blocking, so I know I'm probably going to break his guard, and there it is. Again, you want to get somebody off your nuts, and you want them to stop attacking you so you can heal. You've got to attack them back. That's really the only dependable way to get somebody off of you. I left this in just because it was a little bit silly, and it made me laugh. It still makes me laugh every time I watch this. Yeah, so that's not working out so well for him. And then he gets waxed and makes the mistake of trying to roll. I could not believe he didn't get cursed here. I just put him out of his misery. That's just stupid. Don't roll when you get waxed. You have to wait for the wax to wear off. It's hard to know, like when you spawn in and somebody just starts spamming a straight sword, it's hard to know when you can actually start rolling. And obviously you don't want to roll prematurely and you'll roll right into the R1. And this guy tries to parry me on reaction, which is a bad idea with that kind of a weapon. And I catch him attacking out of stun. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed the content. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoy making it and bringing it to you. Thanks so much for checking in. Take care now.